Hello everyone, welcome to AWS Tutorials. In AWS Tutorials, you'll learn about AWS services. Today we are going to talk about how you can do data quality check in an ETL pipeline. So let's get started. It's going to be a very interesting tutorial today. So let's quickly grasp the problem statement, what we are trying to solve the problem. So when you build any kind of ETL pipeline which is used to bring data to your data platform. So if I'm using AWS Cloud Native Services, then I will use a Glue job to say read data from some database to bring it to S3, generally in a raw stage, and then from there we create some other Glue jobs which then can convert this raw data into something which is consumable, whether it's cleansed or curated, and that data can also sit inside S3 or can go to some other store like Amazon Redshift for data warehouse. Now, if you are building such a pipeline for your data platform, the problem is that if once you bring your data into your data platform and before you move this data to the curated state or cleansing state where the data is ready for consumption, if before you do that, if you don't perform any kind of data quality check, then you might face certain issues like your cleansing job, your curation job might fail because they might expect data to be in certain format, certain data type, but it is not the case. And in that case, the job might fail. Or if you are building any kind of reports or dashboard on the data and the report and dashboard is expecting certain data value to be present, data values to be in certain range, and if it is not in that range, then again it fails. And similarly, if you are building any kind of machine learning model and if you have, say, biased data or something like that, in that case also you will not get the right results. So it is very important that once you bring your data to your data platform and before you make it consumable by either your reports, dashboard, or machine learning or any other purposes, you do some kind of data quality check to ensure that your data meets the minimum standard required for the consumption purposes. And this is the problem statement we are going to solve today. Now, data quality checks could vary a lot. Few examples to say here, you can talk about data quality checks in terms of number of rows, number of column, any duplicate rows, or you can do some kind of column value check like, okay, my column value has certain minimum length or it is not missing any values, it is in certain range. You can have checks like that. Or you can also create a column statistics level check, whether you might look for outliers or look for your distributions or statistical calculation to determine the quality of the data. So basically, you can determine your quality of data both based on the value of the data or statistical analysis of the data or data as a whole in terms of number of rows or columns. So these kind of data quality checks you can apply on your data to ensure that your data meets the minimum standard, minimum requirement for the consumption. Now, what is the solution? So let's quickly go to solution at very high level, and then of course after that I'm going to talk about the solution in detail again. The solution is that the moment you bring your data to your data platform, say I'm bringing it to a raw stage, I'm not simply going to consume it right away. So what I'm going to do as a no-brainer is that first I'm going to run some kind of process to do a data quality check on my data. And then I check if data quality check outcome is okay. If the outcome is okay, then I can do rest of the processing. And rest of the processing can again can depend on your like your pipeline definition. Like you want to clean it first, and then you want to bring it to curated or harmonized layer, or simply bring it to cleansed and then it is ready for consumption. So depending on how you're building a pipeline, the moral of the story is that once your data quality check is okay, this one gives you a green signal, then you simply complete the normal flow of the pipeline. But if the data quality check is not okay, in that case you can take an alternate execution. An alternate execution could be as simple as, okay, send a notification that data quality does not meet the requirement, and you stop it. Or you can also say send data to some kind of, say, dirty data queue or bad data queue into an S3 bucket somewhere, where some kind of human intervention can be used to fix the data and can put back to the pipeline again. So those kind of alternate flows you can build. But basically the crux of the story is that we need to find some solution which can do a data quality check, then assess the quality of data, and if it is a normal flow, then it does the normal execution, and if it is if the data quality check does not meet the requirement, then you simply go for alternate flow, which could be which is precisely don't process the data for the consumption, but send notification, put it to some kind of S3 bucket area, which is used for treating corrupt data, bad data, and then stop the processing. Right? So this is the solution. This is kind of solution you can build. Again, I'm not saying that this is exactly you have to build, but I'm just giving you one example of the solution, and you can, of course, create a variant of the solution depending on your business needs. So how do we achieve this solution? So there are certain things which will come together, and many of those things actually I have discussed in some other tutorials. So first thing is, where do you define data quality check? Okay, where do you define your rules for data quality? And the rules for data quality actually you define in Data Brew. So Data Brew, AWS Glue Data Brew has a feature called data quality check, which you can use to create data quality check for the data sets defined in Data Brew. So this solution is going to use Glue Data Brew for data quality check. And if you're not aware of this feature, how to use it, how to configure it, there is a tutorial on that which I have created some time back. I'm going to give you the link of that tutorial in the description. You can use that to understand it. But you should understand, you should know how data quality check can be defined into Data Brew before you can complete this tutorial or understand this tutorial completely. So that's a one feature or one puzzle which you have to put in place. Second thing is how I'm going to create a pipeline. Now you know that pipeline can be created in many ways, but in this case, since and there, in fact, I created a kind of so many tutorials talking about event-based pipeline and then workflow-based pipeline and step function-based pipeline. But today I'm using step functions-based pipeline because I see a requirement where I have to work with multiple AWS services. So I have to work with Glue, I might have to work with Crawler, I might have to work with, Data Brew, I have to work with, say, for sending notification, I have to work with SNS. Since I'm working with various different types of services, it is recommended that you use step function for the ETL pipeline. So in this case, for the building the pipeline, I'm using step functions. Again, if you don't know how to build a ETL pipeline using Glue and step functions, I created a video about that again some time back, and I'm going to provide you a link in the description box, which you can use to learn about using step functions to build Glue pipeline. It is very important for you to understand that your ETL pipeline can be created in many ways, but in this case, I'm using step function because I need to orchestrate multiple different AWS services like Glue, Data Brew, SNS, Lambda, and for that purpose, I need some workflow orchestrator which can do that, and step function meets my requirement. I can create this workflow in Glue workflow as well, but in that case, I have to do lot of coding, and which will make my workflow very tightly coupled, which I don't want. So I'm using step function, which is a write service to orchestrate multiple AWS services in a workflow scenario. Okay, so please do have a look at this tutorial if you don't know how to use step functions to orchestrate Glue job. Okay, moving on. Let's jump into the solution. So how do so with those those pieces in place, one is Data Brew you can use for data quality check, and a step function for ETL job. Let's see how the solution look like. And I'm going to show you first simple steps, and I have a nice demo as well to show where I have configured everything, because it was a lot of configuration, so I can't do every configuration here. The video becomes very large. So I have already put configuration in place, and I'm going to share some resources which will show you different pieces and which you can use to in fact replicate it at your end as well. But let's look at the big picture, that how does this whole solution look like stepwise. So first thing, you need to configure your landing data in data catalog. So your data is coming to a data platform. Suppose it comes to S3 bucket. That is where your data is landing for the first time, and data quality has to be checked, has to be done on this data landing in your data platform. So first thing you do, you catalog that data which is coming to your S3 bucket. For example, the first time the data is coming to, say, S3 bucket, that data you need to catalog into data catalog, Glue data catalog. Then what you do? Then you create a data set in Glue Data Brew. Very important. You are creating data set in a Glue Data Brew using this catalog. So first you catalog the data, the landing data, and then you are simply creating a data set out of that catalog in Data Brew. That means your catalog data in Glue and this data set in Data Brew both represent the same data. One is cataloging it, other is simply creating a data set out of a catalog. So both represent the same data. Okay, so step number 2 is you create a data set using this catalog. Then what we do? Then we define data quality rules and data profile job. So if you want to create data quality rule, you need to first create a data profile job. You have to run it. Then only you can create the data quality rules. So then on this data set, which you have created into your Glue Data Brew, you create your data quality rules and data profile job. So here you define what you want to check on your data, whether certain value should not be null, certain value should have certain value range, number of columns should not be less than 5, things like that, or things like, for instance, your standard deviation or mean should be greater than certain values, even statistical thing also you can put here. So here you define your data quality rules, and these rules are determined. These rules are used to determine whether data is meeting the minimum requirement or not. And these rules you define on the data set in Glue Data Brew. Then what you do? Then you create a reusable workflow. So I am creating a reusable workflow, which is basically doing the data quality check. Yeah, it's as simple as that. It's simply doing the data quality check. So this workflow will actually run your data profile job, and then after that, whatever data quality, whatever the outcome comes for the data quality based on data quality rules, it will check for that data quality outcome and will determine whether this data set meets the requirement or does not meet the requirement. Okay, you simply do that. Then what you do after that? So that you create into a step function. Finally, whatever this reusable workflow you are creating, actually you simply use this workflow in your ETL pipeline. And when you use this workflow in the ETL pipeline, this reusable workflow will make sure that when the data lands, it checks whether the data is ready, data meets the data quality requirements or not. And if it meets, it's fine. It simply says okay. If not, then it will probably send some notification and stop the workflow so that no processing happens on this data anymore. So this is how you build a step. Again, this is one example here, but but this is the minimum required things you have to do in order to build the solution. What is important here for you to understand, I could have merged these two workflows together. I could have done that. This also gives me the same result, but I try to create a reusable workflow so that I can create a simple step functions workflow which can be used for data quality check across multiple data sets. So I don't need to create I don't need to repeat my code or my data quality code again and again to check the quality of the different data sets. So I created a reusable workflow so that this reusable workflow, any of the ETL pipeline can call and can check the data quality for the data set it is dealing with. So this is very important in my opinion, from design point of view, that this whole data quality check part, you make that part reusable so that different ETL pipelines can use it. Okay, so let's try to dig a little deep. So let's start with the most important piece of this solution, that is your reusable workflow. So what does this reusable workflow do? And again, all these things I'm going to show you in demo as well. So this is how the reusable workflow look like. So this reusable workflow, the first step is it is going to run a data brew job. Keep this in mind, guys. It's a data brew job. So this is simply going to run the profile job. So remember, we created a profile job for a data set. It's simply going to run that. When that job runs, you will have your data quality outcomes based on data quality checks you have defined. So what you do, you create a Lambda function. Again, it's a reusable Lambda function, which simply this workflow is using. This Lambda function is simply going to read from the outcome of this job run. It's going to check the data quality values to see what was the outcome for data quality check. And based on that outcome, then you put a choice statement, and in this choice you say that if my DQ status, data quality status, if it is not succeeded, that means the outcome shows as not succeeded, then I simply send a notification for, say, DQ fail. I simply publish a message to SNS, and then SNS will have some subscriber which can use email or any other method to notify someone who is managing this whole pipeline that, hey, your data quality check has failed. And in this example, I'm simply failing the pipeline. I'm saying, you know what, let's stop the processing because the data quality check has failed. But if not, I simply say pass. That means your data quality check is okay. You're good to go to the next step. So this is how you configure your reusable workflow. I have in the description box, you'll find a link where I'm providing the configuration of this reusable workflow in a JSON document. So you can use that to recreate this reusable workflow at your end, and you might add more functionality to make it better. I try to build a bare minimum reusable workflow which can simply run a profile job, check the outcome of the profile job, and then determine whether data quality check has failed or passed. So let's move on. So how does this data quality check Lambda function look like? Well, this looks like this one is doing a lot of heavy lifting over here. So what exactly it is doing? So what it is doing here, this is how the Lambda function look like. Again, this code has been provided in a link in the description box. So don't worry, you have this code and you can use this code. So what eventually it is doing? So when my job runs, let me come back here again. When my job runs, it creates certain output, and that output goes as a input to your Lambda function. So this Lambda function gets an event which is nothing but the outcome of your data profile job run. And here what I'm going to see, first I fetch the job name. So which job was running. Then I go to my outputs, and there could be multiple outputs, but I'm looking for an output where, and I try to find which bucket this output is, by the way. Is there an output where some kind of data quality validation is available? I look for this key, this string in my object. And if I find, I fetch that file name because I'm interested in that file, because that file has my outcome. That file has my outcome of my data quality rule. Then I create an S3 client, and in S3 client, I want to simply fetch the content from this bucket, from this file, which is holding my outcome, data quality outcome. I simply fetch the content. I simply decode the content using UTF-8, and then I read my content into a JSON. My content is in JSON format, by the way. So I'm simply populating it to a variable. So now I have got my so far I have done very simple thing. I've tried to fetch my job name. Then I looped into my output to look for an output where data quality validation file does exist, and if that exists, I simply get the file name and I simply read the content of the file, because this file is holding the value, the outcome of my data quality run. Then what I do? Then I simply look into this file, and I especially look into two fields. One is called a rule set. So I want to find the rule set first. So if you know Data Brew, you understand what rule set is, and that's why I gave you a link to tutorial earlier that you need to go through it to understand. In fact, all this file location and everything has been nicely explained over there. I'm trying to not to repeat those things because then it becomes very lengthy video for me. So I fetch my rule set name from my outcome file, from my data quality check outcome file, and I fetch the status. And I simply pass all these things values back. So I simply say, okay, the status code is 200. That means my execution was successful. DQ status, data quality status is status. This is status. And then my rule set and my job name. So these things I return back. Now, if I come back to my previous, you can see here, I'm checking data quality status equal to succeeded or not. So this value is coming from this output. So DQ status. So this tells me whether my data quality data quality status for the rule set is succeeded or failed. Okay, so this is how my Lambda function look like. Again, the code has been provided in the description, in the link in the link in the description below. Moving on. So how do I use this reusable workflow? So in my ETL pipeline, I want to reuse this workflow. I want to use this reusable workflow. How do I do that? Pretty straightforward. So I simply start my ingestion job. So first I run a Glue job, which is simply running the ingestion. That means it's bringing data from the whatever system is my source system to my data platform, S3 bucket or anywhere else. Then I run my, then I call my DQ workflow. So this is the reusable workflow which I'm calling. I simply call my reusable workflow. Now, the way I have designed this reusable workflow, that if the data quality check has failed, it will fail the workflow. That means workflow will not move forward, and it will send notification about it. But if it has passed, then it will simply pass. It will come back to the main workflow. And if it has passed, it will go to the next step, which is, say, start cleaning or curation job, something like that. Yeah. So you can reuse this workflow in your ETL pipeline like this. Most important thing is, when you ingest your data, you call this workflow right after that, so that you can check the data quality of the ingested data, and after that only you do rest of the steps. And this workflow, if data quality checks passed, it will pass the control to the next step. If the data quality check fails, it will simply raise the fail notification. It will simply fail the workflow itself. Now, one thing which is very important, when I'm calling this particular workflow, which is my reusable workflow, there I need to of course I have to provide the workflow ARN here, which is fixed, which is static. But then for each of the data set, you create a data profile job name, right? Remember when talk about the steps, we're talking about define data profile job name as well as data quality rules. That profile job name you have to change here. So each of the ETL pipeline, which is using this particular workflow for data quality checks, they have to change this profile job name depending on which data set they are dealing with. So that's what you have to pass, and that's how this workflow knows that, oh, which profile job to run to check the data quality, and that's how it becomes reusable. Okay, so keep this in mind. When this workflow is called, here you have to provide the data profile name, data profile job name to be precise, so that it knows which job to run and then check after a job run for data quality assessment. Okay, that's how you reuse the workflow. Okay, time for the demo. So what we are trying to build here is pretty straightforward. We have an Amazon S3 database, Amazon Redshift database. I'm going to run a Glue job to populate data to an S3 bucket. Then I perform a data quality check. And if data quality check is okay, then I simply pass the workflow, simply say, hey, good, all set. If not, I send an email notification over SNS, using SNS, and then I stop the workflow. So this is what I do. I'm going to run this pipeline 2 times, one with good data and one with bad data, to show you execution of both of these paths. So let's jump to the AWS console to see how this demo works. So here we go. So let's go through one by one things. I have already configured things, because if I try to configure thing now, the video will become very lengthy. So first thing first, I run my, I go to my Redshift. I have my Redshift cluster, which is my source cluster, source database here, and I have a customers table over there. If I run this query, right now, this table is empty because I'm going to insert good and bad data here one by one and run pipeline 2 times to show you both execution. Now, if I come over here, this is my target location. So in my Dojo, my bucket, customers folder, I have got a target location. That's where my data is going to land, and after that, data quality check will happen. Okay. Now in Glue, I have configured this data. So I have configured my data. There are so many things configured here. 2 more important things is, first is my source data is dev public customer coming from Redshift. So this customers table I showed you, that's coming from Redshift. This is my source data. And my destination data is customers, which is in Dojo my data customers. So if I go and click over here, I can show you the schema. So this is the schema, and here in this schema, I'm going to put a rule on email saying that, hey, email cannot be blank. Because for me, I send, say, for example, communication to customers over email, so I need to have their email as a mandatory field. So I'm simply saying my email, I'm going to create a rule saying that email cannot be empty, okay? So I have cataloged both table. You can see here, I've cataloged my source table, my destination table. Then this is my ingestion job. So the job which is running to bring data from Redshift in this example and write it to the S3 bucket. So here you can see here that I'm reading data from DojoDB dev public customers. I'm reading from there, and then I'm writing this data at the target in DojoDB customers table. And customers table in DojoDB is nothing but the data stored in Dojo My Data customers folder. Okay. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So this is my ETL pipeline. Again, an example pipeline just for a demo, but yeah, you might want to do some transformation here as well if you want. Okay. So moving on. Okay, now I'm coming to data brew configuration. So first thing first, I have put my data. I have created my data set. You can see here my customers data set, and this data set is very important. Is source is data catalog. Yeah, so this is sourcing. This is using the same data catalog I have used in Glue catalog. Simply saying I'm going to use that data set, that catalog for creating the data set. So this data set is simply created using a data catalog, which is nothing but a customers table in Glue. In Glue. Now, if I click on this customers here, and if I go to data quality rules, here I have configured data quality rule. So you can see here I have configured data quality rule, which is saying that check if email has missing values. So I'm saying that, you know what, I'm going to, and by the way, here's the link where you can create a data quality rule. So you can see this data quality rule here as well. Let me in fact go there. So if I go to data quality rules here, click, you can see here this data quality rule is actually associated with my customers data set, and it's also associated with a data profile job. And this data profile job will run, and when this run, it will assess this particular set of data quality rules. So if I click on this data quality rule, I can see here I have created one email value rule, which simply says that check if email has any missing values. That should be 0. That means if email has any missing value, then data quality check should fail. Yeah. So I have simply created a data set rules on this data set and associated with this data profile job. Here, this is my data profile job on my data set, and this profile job I'm going to run. My reusable workflow is going to run, and when it runs it, it will also assess the data quality rule on the latest data. Okay. Coming to my reusable workflow, this is how my reusable workflow look like. See here, you have got starting the data profile role, starting the data brew job, simply saying, hey, why don't you, okay, so it is saying profile job name is actually passed as a parameter. Yeah, so it is not hard coded in my reusable. So my ETL pipeline will pass this profile job name parameter saying this is the profile you have to run. Then I'm invoking a Lambda function, which simply is taking the output of this one as an input, and then it is simply using Lambda function to check whether data quality rules meet the requirement, what is the assessment of data quality rules. Then I make a decision here that if my data quality status has succeeded, it has not succeeded, in fact failed, then send notification and fail the workflow. If it has passed, simply pass it. This is the same reusable workflow I showed you. This is how my Lambda function look like. I'm not going to spend any time on this because I already talked about this code in detail. Then this is my SNS notification topic, which is where I'm sending the notification, and I have configured one of my email IDs for configuration. So for the notification, so I should send an email. I should see an email saying my data set has failed a notification. And then here is my step function, the last step function, which is basically saying run the ingestion job first. So this is saying run the ingestion job, and after that simply start the reusable workflow to check the data quality rule on the ingested data, where I'm simply passing in the state machine ARN the ARN of the reusable workflow. And then most important thing here, I am telling which data profile job to run in order to assess the outcome. So let me come out of this because I need to execute it. Leave it here. Okay, fair enough. So I need to run this workflow. So let me go back to here, this workflow. So I will run it. Cool. So we are all good. Now what I need to do is that first in my Redshift, I am going to ingest good data and run this ETL pipeline. So for that, I used one of these insert statements. So first I insert, and you can see here I'm providing all the value. Most important, I'm providing the email IDs. So let me run this first. And it has inserted. So just let me verify it. And there we go. Now I have got all the value inserted here. Now if I come to my step function here, this is my ETL pipeline, which is basically running, if you look at the, basically running the Glue job and then data quality check. I'm simply going to run this workflow. I don't need to provide any input here to this workflow. I start the execution. So now my workflow execution has started. This is with the good data. That means I should be able to see I should not see any fail. Okay. So let me do one thing in this data quality check also. If I simply not here, this function here. I also come over here and data quality check flow. Okay, so this workflow should get called. I have tested it a couple of times, by the way, earlier. So these are those runs. So let's wait for this step function to finish, and once it finishes, we'll come and check. Let me put these next to each other. We'll come and check this particular workflow as well to see whether it has passed or not. Okay, so let's wait for ETL pipeline to finish. Okay. So you can see here that my ETL pipeline has finished, and it has my ingestion job has succeeded, and then my data quality check workflow has also succeeded. Now if I go to my data quality workflow and if I refresh it, I should see an execution for today. And if I open this one, it shows me that first my profile job run, then data quality check was assessed, then it's checked the outcome of data quality and realized, oh, it has passed, so it simply went to the pass path. So let me come back here in my execution list here. Now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to populate a wrong data. And why it is a wrong data? Because in this case, I'm putting null for my emails. And my rule is that if my email is blank, it is a data quality fail. So let me run it. And let me verify one more time. From customers, and I can see now 4 records where 2 records have got null email, and this is supposed to fail my data quality check. So I come back to my ETL pipeline again and say, you know what, I want to run one more time, and I run a new execution. Now this new execution has started. Let's wait till the ingestion finishes and then data quality check finishes, and then we'll see how the outcome look like. Okay, so let's wait. Okay, so my ETL has finished again, and this time you can see that first my Glue job run for ingestion, and then my data quality workflow failed because I inserted a couple of records with empty or null emails, and data quality rules simply said you cannot. And I can see I have got a notification also that your data quality has failed. So this is example saying that status goes 200, DQ status failed, rule set customer DQ rules, and job name customer data profile jobs. You can see here I also got a notification for the failure here through the SNS subscription configured for my for the email subscription configured from SNS topic. Now, coming back to my step function, reusable step function, if I simply refresh it, I can see here I have got one more execution which has failed. And you can see here in this case the flow has been different this time. So first the profile job run, then DQ status, then choice, and then notify DQ fail, and notify DQ fail, and finally it called the SNS notification flow, and you saw that email because of this step, and then it simply failed. So you can see here that data quality check did work for me, where it checked for the email values for the ingested data, and when it saw that email values were null, it simply failed my data quality check and stopped the workflow. So this is how you can actually configure data quality check as a part of your ETL pipeline to ensure that you process only data which meets the minimum quality requirements or standard quality requirements, to ensure that whatever you do with the data, that has certain quality maintained, certain outcome maintained. So that's all about the video today, guys. Hope you like the video, and if you like the video, please click on the like button. Please subscribe to my channel. I always look forward to your feedback on my channel, whether it is for new content or for some correction or for any of the architecture design you want to discuss with me. So I look forward to your feedback to improve my content, to improve my videos and tutorials. So I promise to come back again in a week's time with another such video. In the meantime, please stay safe and have a nice day. Bye-bye.